Hi, in this video we're going to have a look at CheckCentral's Acronis Cyber Protect integration. This integration will automatically create checks for backup jobs in your Acronis environment and then regularly poll Acronis for recent backup activities. We'll step through the configuration steps necessary to get started. To get started, we'll head to the Direct Integrations page located under the Services menu. We'll click Acronis from the list of available integrations. This will present us with the new Direct Integration Wizard. The first thing we need to do is name our direct integration. In this example, we'll just stick with the default name. Next, we'll need to switch over to our Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud environment in order to create a new API client. In the sidebar, we'll click on Settings, then API Clients. Next, we'll click on the Create API Client button. In the Create API Client window, we'll give our API client a name, then click Next. A client ID, secret, and data center URL will be displayed. We'll click on the Copy button displayed here to copy all of these values to our clipboard. You can paste this data somewhere handy. We'll need to reference it shortly. Let's switch back to CheckCentral. In the Acronis Client ID field, we'll enter the client ID value that we copied earlier. In the Acronis Client Secret field, we'll enter the client secret value that we copied earlier. Finally, in the Acronis Data Center URL field, we'll enter the data center URL value we copied earlier. We'll click Next to continue. We're presented with the Group Assignment page. This is where we'll set which group our checks will be assigned to. If we have a look at the default check group section, we'll see that by default, CheckCentral will assign new checks to groups based on the customer value of the backup job. Further down, we can see that if there isn't an existing group that matches the customer value, CheckCentral will go ahead and create a new group based on that customer value and assign the check to that group. These can all be customized to accommodate your use case, but we'll stick with these default settings for this demo. Underneath the default check group section, there's a section called Customize Group Assignment. This allows us to manually map customers in Acronis to CheckCentral groups. You can also click on the Auto Match Groups button to have CheckCentral attempt to automatically map those customers to groups. Once we've set up our group assignments, we'll click on the Save and Create Check Definition button to continue with our setup. The check definition setup allows us to choose exactly what jobs we're having CheckCentral monitor, how those checks are identified, and how we should be notified when there are issues. We'll start by setting up our matching rules. By default, CheckCentral will create checks for all jobs it discovers. You can create rules to only include specific jobs if needed, but in this example, we'll create checks for all jobs. We'll click Next to continue. We're presented with the Check Identification page. This allows us to configure how we want our checks named and what labels to apply. We'll start with the check name template. By default, the checks will be named based on dynamic values pulled from the Acronis integration. In this case, the resource being backed up, followed by the plan assigned to the backup. This can be edited if needed, but we'll stick with the default settings here for this example. Next, we can set what label will be applied to the check. By default, the label is created based on dynamic values from the integration as well, starting with the integration name followed by the resource type. This can be changed if needed, but we'll stick with the defaults for this as well. The Check Group section allows us to override the group mappings we set up during the previous steps. But in this example, we don't need to make any changes. We'll click Next to continue. The Notifications page lets us configure how we want to be notified when there are issues. We can choose to be emailed, receive a text message, receive push notifications via the CheckCentral mobile app, as well as several other options. If you've configured other notification services or ticketing systems, those can be selected as well. Additional options to further refine when alerts are sent are also available, but for our example, we'll stick with the defaults. We'll click Next to continue. The final page shows us a summary of what checks will be created, and we can see what the names of our checks will look like, as well as what label they'll be assigned. Since everything looks good, we'll go ahead and click on the Save button. We'll be taken to the Integration Overview page. From here, we can see a list of backup jobs that have been discovered by our integration and view the resulting checks. By default, this integration will update data every 6 hours, but we can manually request an update by clicking on the Update button located at the top of the page. We can see that one activity has been created, meaning CheckCentral has received some backup status information from Acronis. If we open up one of our checks here, we can see the new activity under the Recent Activities table. We can click on the latest activity we received to view the backup status information CheckCentral received from Acronis. We've now completed configuring our Acronis integration in CheckCentral. CheckCentral will automatically create checks for any new backup jobs it discovers from our Acronis environment and update those regularly. As always, CheckCentral will keep an eye on things and let us know if there are any issues.